Hey guys, it's book review time once again, the Tomes of Terror show. Got a really good one this week. I feel like a lot of people have read this one, and a lot of people have maybe read this author, but I am just getting around to her stuff. So, it takes me a little while to get to things, but eventually I get to things. And many people have recommended this one to me. So I finally got around to reading it. This is a kind of a horror thriller, Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. Now, this came out in 2015, and I guess Karen Slaughter is like a very well-known writer of thrillers. Most of her stuff, I think she usually writes like in series, and I guess they're like bestsellers like around the world, have been translated into a whole bunch of different languages. And this was the first one of hers that I read, and I have to say that I can understand now why she sells so many books, because I feel like the thriller genre is like usually the plots are similar because there's, like I said, there's only so much you can do. Like in horror, you can go supernatural, you can do like all these other things with ghosts and whatnot. But in a thriller, it kind of has to stay at least somewhat grounded in reality. You can get a little bit unbelievable, a little bit out there, a little bit over the top, but you still have to have it be grounded enough in reality that people can suspend their disbelief and go along on this ride. So that said, it's not the most original plot, but then again, what thriller has a really original plot? As I said, there's only so many things you can do in this genre. That said, this was a really compelling novel, like the narrative of it. I will say that it took me maybe 20, 30 pages to like really get into it. But once I did, I could not put it down. I read almost the whole thing like in one sitting. I will say too, sometimes I forget to do this. Not usually, like if it's really egregious, but if you're going to be bothered by very graphic and detailed descriptions of rape, torture, murder, dismemberment, and realistically portrayed, then this is not going to be the book for you, because this book is pretty messed up. It goes to some very dark places, and it doesn't shy away from describing those things in a very detailed fashion. So as I said, if you're bothered by pornography, or if you're bothered by violence, particularly against women, sexual assault, rape, just the worst, like torture kind of that probably you can imagine, then you might want to skip this one, because it is very disturbing and very graphic. That kind of thing doesn't really bother me that much. I don't know what that says about me, but it did bother me in the sense that it wasn't in there just to be shocking, or just, which it is shocking, but I think that it really served the story being in there because it showed you like how monstrous a human being could be. And I think that the violence was really balanced out very well with how the disappearance and murder of a person really affects their whole entire family, affects the community. And I think that particular parts of this book, which I'll get into in a little bit, really kind of hit home how this affects a family. She's very good. Karen Slaughter is very good at like describing how this disappearance of this one young girl affected particularly her father, because it's from his point of view, like these kind of interstitials that are in this book. And it's just heartbreaking, like, the way that she portrays this man, wondering what happened to her. And like he's writing letters to his daughter who has disappeared. And just, you can just feel the anguish, and it's just like really well conveyed. So this is actually it's an emotionally draining book too. I mean, it's not just one that's like really disturbing just on a violence level and on a gore and shocking kind of stuff, which it is, but it's also very emotionally devastating. I think because the characters are just so well drawn, and you really get a sense of these as real people who are, horribly affected by this crime or this series of crimes. So I think that was like really well done. I mean, that was one of the things that really kept me, going through the book, was just, the interplay between the characters. They all seemed, very richly drawn. They seemed like real people. I could picture them. I could picture the surroundings. So it's very vividly drawn. And I think that really goes a long way to why this book is so compelling and why it seems like, I mean, on Goodreads, it has almost all very, very positive reviews. There were a couple people that didn't like it, but I feel like most of the negative reviews that I saw, some people were just like the violence and the gore and stuff was just too much for them, or they thought that it was overdone for the sake of being shocking, which I don't agree. But, you know, if people saw it that way, then that's obviously their opinion and they're entitled to it. A couple people thought, well, it wasn't all that original, or it was just kind of like, you know, more of the same kind of thriller, which, as I said before, again, you know, I disagree, but on the other hand, there are only so many thriller plots that you can do. You know, without resorting to ghosts or what have you. So that said, you know, all you can do at this point is just write that same plot or those same like plot tropes, just write them in a more original, compelling way that makes you want to finish the book, that makes you get into the characters. And I think that Karin Slaughter really, really succeeded in doing that. So as again, I'm not going to really spoil any of the big plot twists because this really does have a lot of plot twists. And I really love like the way the book is constructed is that, you know, it kind of pulls you in just the first few pages. And then it just keeps ramping it up and ramping it up and ramping it up. And it's just like the farther you go down the rabbit hole, like the more fucked up it gets and the more not convoluted necessarily, but the more complicated it gets, the more people that are involved, and it just gets darker and darker. You think it's not going to get any worse, and then like somehow it does. So that was another thing that really kept, because you really had to like sit there and read and be like, oh, fuck, man, like what the hell is going to happen next? So it really, really does have that just ratcheting tension that just keeps you fascinated the whole entire time. So the story concerns, and like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything big, but if you don't want to know anything about this book then going in, then obviously you need to go read the book and then come back and watch this, because I might spoil a couple plot points that you might not want to know going into it. So that's your fair warning right there. And that's all I'm going to say about it. So the story concerns, the main characters are two sisters, Claire and Lydia. Now, you don't actually know that they're sisters at first because the book is structured in such a way. It kind of starts out with like a man writing a letter to his daughter who has disappeared many years before, back in 1991, and they don't know what happened to her. So it starts out with that, but then we start in with Claire. Now, Claire is she's married to this very, very wealthy, I think he's an architect or something, or he has his own architectural firm. And it takes place in Atlanta, in case I didn't mention that. So she's married to this super, super wealthy dude. And on the surface, he seems like the perfect man. He's completely in love with her. They've been married for quite a long time, 18 years, I believe. And he's completely devoted. He's very supportive. You know, he gives her everything that she wants. They have this beautiful, beautiful house that's, you know, just this gorgeous. And it's like, you know, they have all these cars and it's like fantastic. She doesn't have to work. She's kind of like essentially a kept woman. And I think she even refers to herself as that at some point. You know, she just kind of goes to the country club and plays tennis and does whatnot. And it's interesting because you kind of start out with her. She's kind of likable, but not that likable, but she gets more likable as the story goes on, because I think that her character arc is, I mean, both the sisters have great character arcs, but I think that Claire's character arc was really kind of interesting because she sort of seemed like she went from this naive woman that was kind of went through her life, oh, I have money, and she was kind of insulated. And also she had no idea what the fuck was going on, like with her husband, which is one of the main points of the book. Like he was up to all this shit and she just never noticed it. She never saw any red flags or anything of that nature. So the fact of her coming into her own and discovering the truth and finding her inner strength, and then her sister Lydia doing that in her own way, because, you know, they're very different characters, is really kind of the heart of the book. And I think that was probably one of the things I liked best, when the two sisters kind of come together and start working together to figure this mystery out. So Claire, at the very beginning of the book, she has just gotten out of jail. Now, she's only been in there for 6 months. And for a long time, you don't really know like what she was doing in jail. Like she still had an ankle, I guess she had an ankle bracelet on, so she was under house arrest, and she just got the ankle bracelet off. You don't find out until later it was for assault. Like one of her kind of upper class tennis partners like said something sideways, and she like just whacked her, like she kneecapped her or something like that, like with the tennis racket, which you find out later, which I thought was really funny. I don't know, it just seemed like such a Karen thing for somebody to do. But yeah, she's just got the ankle bracelet off, like at the very beginning of the book. She's at a bar and she's there to meet her husband, Paul. So they're having a drink or whatever. And it turns out too that there is another missing girl named Anna Kilpatrick, I think is her name. And she's been missing for a while and nobody really knows what happened to her. Now you find out as the story goes on that Claire's oldest sister, Julia, was the girl that went missing back in 1991, who the dad was writing the letter to, like at the very beginning of the book, like in the prologue. So Claire and her husband are sitting at this bar. She just got her ankle monitor off and she's kind of, you know, celebrating, have a drink or whatever. Paul brings up the Anna Kilpatrick case because everyone's kind of been following it. And then he kind of decides, oh, we need to go get frisky in this alley behind the bar. Now, Claire thinks this is a little weird because this is not usually something that Paul is into. Because as I said, they've been married for 17, 18 years at this point. And even though they're still very much in love and whatnot, she's like, he's not a real spontaneous type of guy. Like he's very orderly and everything in the house has like a label on it and everything is documented and, you know, everything has the instructions right next to it. So he's very much that kind of dude. So the fact that he decides he's going to take her into the alley and they start like starting to fuck against the wall, she's like, okay, this is a little out of character, but all right, I'm into it. And as I said, this isn't a super spoiler because this happens very, very, very early in the book and kind of is the catalyst that brings the deluge later on. So while they're in the middle of the activities in the alley, this dude comes up and starts to rob them. And Paul gets stabbed and he dies in the alley. Now, at this point, Claire, she's not useless. She's very, very intelligent. You know, she's very resourceful, but I feel like her being, because one of the things about the title Pretty Girls, and Karin Slaughter kind of goes into this a lot, whereas Claire seems like this girl that didn't ever, even though she was very intelligent, because she was so beautiful, she didn't really ever have to like assert herself. She didn't have to do much of anything because a lot of things were done for her. She was kind of coddled in a sense. So after her husband dies, she realizes that she doesn't really know that much of anything about kind of just the regular details of their life. She doesn't know the name of their insurance agent. She doesn't know where anything is. She just doesn't know anything. What ends up happening after that is that after the funeral, they're coming back from the funeral like 4 days after he gets stabbed to death in the alley, and she discovers that their house has been broken into. The cops are already there when the funeral procession gets to the house where the wake is going to be. They said, well, it looks like somebody broke in, but they didn't really take much of anything. So while she's kind of going through all the things and trying to figure out what was stolen or whatever, her husband's partner in the architectural firm, whose name is Adam, who she has had kind of, not an affair necessarily, but she's had sex with him a few times just because she's one of those kind of ladies, I guess. She was just like getting bored. She just kind of has to run around or whatever. But so he basically says to her, he's like, Paul had these files on his work computer and I really, really need them for this presentation. And he leaves her this note that sounds kind of threatening. Like, if you don't give them to me, like, you know, we can do this the hard way or something like that. Well, she interprets it as very threatening and she thinks it's very odd. So she goes into Paul's computer and starts looking for these files. And while she's in there, she finds these movies that are essentially snuff porn. She's like, what the hell is Paul doing? Because she's not weirded out. She's like, dudes watch porn, whatever. But then she was watching this and she's like, God damn. She's like, that's some fucked up shit and it doesn't look fake. And also it's very suspicious that while all the cops are there, she's like, why are all these cops here just for a break-in? And it didn't even look like they stole anything. And then like a dude shows up that you find out is from the FBI, and she's like, what the fuck is this guy doing here? And then what the fuck are these movies doing on my husband's computer? She takes the movies to the cops. The cops tells her, oh, they're fake. It's like, it's just, you know, snuff porn, people make it. And it's like, look, you can see where the squib is and everything like that. So she's like, okay. But she doesn't really buy it. Now, there's a very funny thing that happens because, as I said, we're kind of following Claire for most of the like first little bit of the book. And then we start following this other woman, Lydia. She's like a recovering addict. She used to be like a big cokehead and sold herself for drugs and whatnot. But this was like a long time ago. She's been sober for 17, 18 years at this point. She's kind of working class. She sort of struggled, but she kind of, you know, came up through and she actually pulled herself together, and now she owns her own dog grooming business. She has a teenage daughter named Dee that she loves very much, and she's dating this guy named Rick, who's a mechanic or something, and they seem like really, really happy together. Now, Lydia, you don't know until a bit later on, until this one very funny scene, that Claire and Lydia are sisters, but they're estranged. They haven't spoken to each other for like 20 years. And it turns out that when Lydia finds out that Paul has been murdered, basically she says, good, I hope he suffered. So you're like, oh, intriguing. I wonder what the hell was going on there. So as it goes on, basically Lydia goes to like piss on Paul's grave because she's happy he's dead, but you don't know why. And Claire is at the grave and sees her, and they kind of get back together. Now, by this time, Claire has really like started to fall apart. As I said, she was so used to like Paul doing everything for her that she's clueless. She doesn't know what to do without him. And then there's all this confusion about these fucking movies. It's like, why the hell does he have these? Why was the FBI sniffing around? What the fuck is going on? Why is Adam threatening me like he needs these files? So there's all kind of shit happening. So finally, her and Lydia, the sisters, they basically get together they kind of team up after all this time, even though there's still like a lot of rancor between them, which you find out why later on, and have to sort of get through the mystery and figure out like what one thing has to do with another thing. So that's kind of all that I want to like spoil about it. But as I said, there's a lot of twists and turns. You might be able to see where it's going, sort of. One big plot point, which I'm not going to spoil, which happens like probably right about in the middle of the book, even though it's a plot twist that I've seen before, like in other thrillers. It's a fairly common plot twist, but I will say that I did not see it coming, and that when I read it, I was just like, like I gasped out loud. So I was like, no fucking way. But yeah, so it did, even though it's one that is done a lot, it still kind of blindsided me, like it came out of nowhere. And then like the shit just gets crazier and crazier from there. As I said before, I think probably the best part of this book is the characterization, particularly of Claire and Lydia, and to a lesser extent their mom, who she's not like a major character in the book. She's kind of like a little bit of a background character, and she doesn't really like come into her full badassery until the end, but she's kind of a great character too. Just the fact of these two sisters who have been estranged for so long, and they're just completely different people, and them having to come back together to sort through this deepening mystery, this horrifying mystery that that involves both of them, and also involves their missing sister, Julia, who they never found. As I said, she disappeared back in 1991. And, you know, all of these tendrils surrounding. And as I said, the mystery just gets deeper and deeper. It gets, and while also getting wider and wider, like with more people being involved and more tendrils of the stuff. And it's just like a really, really fascinating, this is a really, really well plotted book. I will say there's nothing, I mean, there's a lot of description, there's a lot of character work, but all of it is in service to this mystery and in service of these characters and the way that they come together to sort through not only the history that they have with one another, but also moving toward a future where they can, you know, figure out what's going on and move on from it. Because I think that's one of the main things, is that they keep kind of going back to the girl Julia, who, you know, I believe she was 19 when she went missing back in 1991, and how that just eviscerated their family. You know what I mean? Because they never found out what happened to her. It's almost kind of like the dad, whose name was Sam, he never wanted to give up on her because the cops were just like, she just ran away to join a hippie commune or whatever. Like that was something people did in 1991. I don't know. So the dad just never gave up on her. It was like, I'm going to find her one of these days. And then it seemed like the mom obviously was very upset about it, but after a long time had gone by and they hadn't found her, I think the mom was kind of like, well, she must be dead. It's like, we have to move on from here. We still have 2 other daughters. So there was a lot of, not bad blood necessarily, but they did end up like divorcing at some point. And then the 2 sisters ended up having a rift, not only because of that, but because of some other things that also had to do with Claire's husband. So everything in this is important and everything in this means something. And it's really, really rare to come across a book that is this well plotted, this intricately plotted, just because everything services the main narrative and it just all keeps going toward the end and everything is wrapped up. Everything means something. And it was just like a really, really satisfying read. I have to say too, that the end of this, I'm not going to spoil that either, but there one scene at the end in particular, and if you've read it, you'll know what I'm talking about, is just immensely satisfying. And that is also difficult to do with thrillers, I feel like, because sometimes they'll set up this really great mystery, but then the end is just kind of like, okay, that was it. But this one, I was just kind of like, fuck yeah, that's how you end a book right there. And then I liked that there was a little bit of a, after kind of the big main climax and everything, there was like a little bit of a respite where everyone kind of got back together. We're going to move forward from here. And it was just really, really nice. And it was like a really, really touching cherry on top at the end because of, even though all these horrific, horrific things happen, I'm telling you, like some really fucked up shit happens in this book. But even though all that happened, all of the women came out the other end better. Obviously they were still damaged because of all that, but they sorted through all their shit. They came back together. They came back together as a unit. And it was a really, really great, satisfying ending. So as I said, if you really, really like thrillers and for some reason you haven't read this, but I hadn't read it either, so no shame. Because like I said, it came out back in 2015, but I didn't get on the Karen Slaughter train. I still haven't read any of her other, her series or anything like that, but I definitely will be looking out for more of her stuff because this was just a really, really enthralling thriller. Like it just kept me fastened to the book like the whole time until the end. And it was just like such a great ending, such great character development. And these people just really seem to like live and breathe. And I just really, really liked it. So yeah. And as I said, now if you're not down with like reading really, really horrific descriptions of rape and murder and torture and stuff like that, then you might want to pass because this one is pretty rough. But if that's not going to bother you, then I really, really, really do recommend this one. It's really, really good. So yeah, check it out if you haven't already. And that'll do it for this Tomes of Terror. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.